Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpin alongside Chris Palmer. Chris Palmer, how we doing today?
Doing good, man. Like I said last week, playoffs are in the air, and it is now getting ever more important. Every game is a must win. Last week was very fun.
Oh, you're absolutely right, Chris Palmer. And every game is a must win from here on out. And playoff hopes are on the line this upcoming week. But we have a special week because this is Thanksgiving weekend in the NFL, and there's so many great games of this upcoming week. So many great games on Thanksgiving. And before we begin, if you're watching this, we want to wish you and your family a happy Thanksgiving. And we hope you have a very safe Thanksgiving as well.
Yes, yes. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone who watches, and a very special thank you to everyone who watches us every week.
Yeah. So thank you very much to everyone who watches. And without further ado, let's get right into our Week 11 recap, starting with my Baltimore Ravens taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, beating them 34-20 in a great win. But it came at a big cost. Mark Andrews is out for the year, as well as Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is going to be out for the year with a wrist injury. Chris Palmer, give me your brief thoughts. What does this mean for the Bengals for the rest of the season?
Um, I think everything that has to do with the word postseason is now on hold for the year.
Mhm.
Terrible loss to lose Joe Burrow, but they're actually under investigation at the moment for not letting the NFL know that Joe Burrow had an injury going into this game. He was seen multiple times during the week wearing some form of support on his throwing hand, holding his thumb, and that is exactly where the injury happened.
Mhm.
So the Bengals are now under investigation for why they didn't report it. Um, but their playoff hopes are now, I would believe, to be shot.
Yeah, uh, Bengals fans, my heart goes out to you. We wish both Joe Burrow and Mark Andrews a very safe and healthy recovery moving forward. Um, so, with that being said, let's move on to the other AFC North rivalry that we talked about last week, and that was your Steelers against the Cleveland Browns. And the Browns came away with a very close win, 13-10. Was not a sexy win, but with that loss to the Steelers, they actually fired their offensive coordinator, Matt Canada. So, Palma, take it from here, man. What does this mean?
I feel like I can speak for just about every Steelers fan and almost a resident of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Goodbye. Just goodbye. But this means now it's at step one. Now we can see what is actually wrong. What's going on, because as bad as the playbook was, because the playbook was bad, we also had problems with execution. QB IQ when it comes to progression reading was way off. Offensive line still needed a lot of help. We have a lot of work to do. This was the right step to start at step one. It's just terrible that step one has to happen at week 11.
Yeah, this. I know you and I. We've talked plenty of this. This should have happened a lot sooner. But I'm glad they made the right decision in getting rid of Matt Canada. Like you said, this is the first step in many long steps to get the Steelers to where they need to be, but it's a good step moving forward. Um, so with that being said, let's move on to Miami, where the Dolphins beat the Raiders 20-13. Not a crazy high scoring game, but it was a solid win for Miami.
Yep, good strong win. The Dolphins, again, just like every other team in the AFC that's playing for high playoff hopes and or Super Bowl, every game is a must win. Dolphins needed this.
Absolutely. Staying alive in that playoff race, baby. So let's move on to the NFC with the Detroit Lions beating the Chicago Bears 31-26. Bears put up a good fight, and this was the return of Justin Fields, and they looked pretty decent on the field.
Yeah, good hard win by the Lions. Just like on the AFC side, NFC front runners, every game is a must win, and the Bears aren't a team to necessarily underestimate. They're not necessarily playoff team winners, but they could be spoilers.
Absolutely. So keep your eye on the Bears moving forward, especially this offseason, because they have some very important draft picks that's going to be crucial for them and other teams going forward. But keep an eye on Chicago for the rest of this year and in the month of April as well. So let's move on to the AFC South, where the Jacksonville Jaguars just completely demolished the Tennessee Titans 34-14. Wasn't even close of a game. It was all Jags all day.
Yeah, kind of expected. The Jaguars are much better prepared for the postseason than the Titans are. So this is what it should be. This should be a Jaguars very simple, easy win, and this is what it was.
Absolutely. So let's move on to Green Bay Lambeau Field, where the Chargers took on the Packers, only to lose to the Packers 23-20. Solid win for the Packers in a very stunning upset. But good for them for coming out with a win.
Yeah, good hard win for the Packers. You and I, we spoke a lot about the Chargers in the past couple of years, saying that they were good, not great. They needed to do more. It's almost like the Chargers are regressing where the Packers are starting to pick up, and the ceiling for the Packers is higher. So the Packers, although this may not be their year, give them a couple of years, we could be talking about them a lot more.
I don't know if I agree with you that their ceiling is higher, but I will say they do have the pieces that they need in order to be a successful team. They have a lot of young players, and I think if you're willing to develop those young players, you could be a contending team within the next couple of years. Um, so let's move on to a team that is already ahead of the mark. The Houston Texans taking on the Arizona Cardinals. A win by the Texans, 21-16. But man, Cardinals, they're scrappy, man. We talked about this game. They're very, very scrappy.
Yeah, you and I, we kind of said this was going to be a team, like the Cardinals were going to be a team that going to go in with nothing to lose, and they're going to try and spoil something. And the Texans, they're playing really well, but they're probably going to need a little bit of help getting into the postseason. So again, every win counts. So, and the Cardinals know that just as well.
Absolutely. The Texans currently sit at the 6th seed in the AFC. So let's move on to the NFC, where the Dallas Cowboys beat the Carolina Panthers 33-10. Wasn't even close. All Dallas, all day. Wasn't even close.
Yeah, it's kind of expected that the Cowboys can beat a hurting team, but the question still remains is, can you beat a succeeding team?
Yeah, and Dallas does not have a easy schedule ahead because they play a lot of great competitive teams. They have Philly again later on in the season, and they also play the Seahawks. Not this Thursday, but the following Thursday after Thanksgiving, they play the Seahawks that Thursday night. So it's going to be a tough road ahead for the Cowboys, but they for this week they did what they took care of business.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to uh, Washington, where the New York Giants and Tommy DeVito beating the Washington Commanders 31-19 in an upset. Man, Tommy DeVito, man.
Look at Tommy DeVito trying to put a little bit of life in the Giants. This really wasn't a game of merit for either side. This was a division win, so you obviously want to play hard. And the Giants simply didn't play worse.
Was this a win for Italians everywhere?
Ayo, Tommy.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so let's move on to San Francisco, where the 49ers took on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and came away with the win 27-14. 49ers are just the better team in this instance, right?
They're just a well-oiled machine, man. It's going to be very hard to stop them moving forward.
Absolutely. Let's move on to Buffalo, where the New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills met in a division rival clash-up, and it wasn't even close. It was Buffalo 32-6, and the Jets have benched Zach Wilson, and Zach Wilson will not be starting for them this week. It will be Tim Boyle. Chris Palmer, let me ask you, what does this mean for Zach Wilson going forward?
Well, I think going into the season, he should have counted himself lucky that he had a job to begin with. And the fact that he made it 11 weeks, he should really be counting his blessings. He has not been playing well.
No.
So I would say his job is gone. One way or another.
Can he back up for a team next year?
I don't think anyone would want him as a backup. Maybe he may wind up as a backup to a backup. He's on like Mason Rudolph vibes. Like you're gonna end up on third string.
I mean, he'll still get a check somewhere.
He'll get a check at some point when two people get injured or one person gets injured, another one doesn't want to play.
Pretty, pretty much. Oh man. Okay, so Jets fans, you have a lot to worry about in this to finish off the season. You guys had a chance for the playoffs, and now it's starting to slip away out of your hands. But the AFC is very thick right now, so you're still alive. You're still alive. But I want to move on to uh, the Rams and the Seahawks. Rams came away with the victory, 17-16. The Rams still alive in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, we talk about the AFC a lot, but the NFC is just as close. The Rams are very close to a playoff run. Good hard win.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's we have the Denver Broncos coming away with a strong win over the Minnesota Vikings, 21-20. Ooh, what a close game, man. Denver has been cooking.
Denver has a pulse. Again, much needed win. It's looking pretty cool over in Denver now that Russell Wilson has some wheels under his feet.
Hey, this was a great game to watch, and you and I we talked this game, and this was it doesn't get closer than a 1 point game.
Right.
So, good win for Denver. They stay alive. And Minnesota, you still stay alive in the playoff hunt in the NFC. Moving on to the Monday night Super Bowl rematch that was the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Eagles coming away with a strong victory, 21-17. Man, this was more of a defensive game than anything else. But you and I we kind of saw this coming.
Yeah, we saw this one, but something that I didn't notice until I saw it today. This was the third game straight where Kansas City was held scoreless in the second half. So, not saying it should raise some flags, but the the immortal Kansas City Chiefs have one huge flaw apparently, and it's now a pattern, and it's proven.
Yeah, and the Chiefs are one of those teams where it's like they're still one of the top best teams in all the NFL, but their receivers are really dropping these balls a lot. There's a lot of missed drops and missed points opportunities. Um, I think they might be very overusing Patrick Mahomes' greatness in a sense where it's like we don't need a star wide receiver. We have Mahomes, right? So they surround him with all these like B+
Has-beens
guys.
and who are is right.
And so but these guys are not making the plays enough. Um so is that going to bite the Chiefs in the long term?
They very well
Maybe.
could.
It very well could, but there's still a lot of season left and plus the postseason. And I would still expect the Chiefs to be in the postseason contending for the Super Bowl. But
If they weren't, something went terribly, terribly wrong.
yes. But like you said, the red flags have been raised, and I think Chiefs fans should start to sweat a little bit because now they are no longer the number one seed in the AFC.
Right, that belongs to you now.
Hey, you said it,
I'll
not me.
give that one to you. I'll give it to you.
But I mean, we have our bye in week 13, so we'll see. We'll see what happens from there. But it is nice to sit at number one. But with that being said, that is our week 11 recap. So much has happened this past week, and we have an amazing slate of games this upcoming week for week 12. I want to start by saying this is not typically how you and we've done Thanksgiving in the years past. Typically, we've done just talked the Thanksgiving games, but we wanted to kind of let you guys digest this episode a little bit and kind of be like, give you guys a chance to listen to other games that are going to happen on Sunday. But we want to start with at least one game on Thanksgiving, and that is the Packers and the Lions. A tradition of seeing the Lions on Thanksgiving since 1934, and this will be just a tradition in football is seeing the Lions. So, Chris Palmer, I'll have you start with the Packers and the Lions.
Well, thank you. Like you said, this is an absolute tradition game. When you think Thanksgiving football, you think Green Bay versus Detroit, or Detroit playing probably Dallas or Chicago. Those are like the iconic Thanksgiving games. So going into this game, you have the nostalgia, but this one has a different feel to it, like years past. For decades, historically, the Lions were usually the losing end of the Thanksgiving game, especially to Green Bay. Green Bay usually always had their number.
Mm-hmm.
This year's different. The Lions are a different team. Like we've been saying, we go to war for the coach. He can turn anybody. Um, but this game almost has January vibes to it, because both of these teams could very well. Well, the Lions are definitely going to the playoffs. But Green Bay, if again, they're going to need some help. If things go right, they could very well sneak into that wild card spot.
Mm-hmm.
So this game on both sides, it very well could turn in either's favor.
Oh, 100%. And for the Packers, that win against the Chargers was huge because they stay alive in that playoff hunt. Detroit comfortably lead. Well, I wouldn't say comfortably, but they lead that division at 7-3 or 7-4 with 7 wins. I know that. Um, but and they're doing it with the second best offense in the league. And this is again a new age Lions team that we are just not used to seeing. But you and I are very happy to be seeing because we kind of saw this coming, and now they have all the pieces that they need to compete against the top teams in the NFC. I want to see the Lions against the 49ers. I want to see the Lions against the Eagles. I think these are going to be great matchups in the playoffs if they come to fruition. Um, but typically on Thanksgiving, you put on the Lions at the 12 o'clock game, and it's kind of background noise, right? It's just like it's background noise. You take a glance over, you see it's like it's Packers up 14-0 right now. Aaron Rodgers doing his thing and everything. The Rodgers is gone. Goff is here. Jordan Love this is his first Thanksgiving game that he's going to be playing and starting. Um, and I gotta say I wanted to look at the tape with Jordan Love and the Packers and see what's going on. And they kind of remind me of I want to say the Steelers a little bit, where it's like you can only really play one style of football, where they're not going to have a shootout. They're not going to win a shootout. They're going to come in and they're going to try to control the game. They're not going to put up 35 points. They won against the Chargers 23-20. Very low scoring affair. Nothing sexy. Wasn't anything crazy. And their wins are typically low scoring affairs. Jordan Love, 2,300 yards, 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Pretty good, right? 59% completion percentage. That's below average. That's not that
Yeah,
good.
no, that's not great.
And you look at Jared Goff, 2,700 yards, 16 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 68% completion percentage.
One of the most accurate in the league right now.
That's the thing, and that's what separates Goff and Love right now, is the accuracy, is just the efficiency on offense. The Lions are again the second best offense in the league, right behind the Dolphins, and they are putting up points, and they are not out of games. The Bears gave them a run for their money, and I think for this game, it's like if the Lions jump to a big lead, I will not expect the Packers to catch up anytime.
No.
But if the Packers can kind of keep them slowed down a little bit, I think the Packers might have a chance to win. But these are two completely different teams that we have not seen this year before, so this is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, like you said, we haven't seen these teams line up for a game in years like this. Again, the tables have completely turned.
Hmm.
So I want to see the energy coming in to this game on both sides. How both take the feeling of being on the opposite sides of the table.
Yeah, and again, going into it's all about team expectations. And for and years, we've always expected the Packers to be just run the table in the NFC. Occasionally, you'd have the Vikings challenge them, but it was always just the Lions have always been the doormat of the
Right.
NFC North.
They've been the doormat of the NFL for years.
Oh yeah, they are one of the most snake-bitten franchises in the NFL,
Right.
but not this year. This year they are not.
No, that all changed last year when we called that shit like 2 years ago when we first started. There was something
Hmm.
going on in Detroit.
Hmm.
Didn't know what it was just yet, and then we figured out what it was, and it was Dan Campbell.
Hmm.
Dan Campbell was happening in Detroit, and then now we have what is an absolute like juggernaut. And let's be real here, they won the draft,
Hmm.
and it's
I was
not
actually, yep.
close, and it's not close.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because you and I were talking off air. I went back to our drafts list because for those of you who don't know, I actually write everything that like my notes and shit like that. And I wrote down every single player that was drafted to every team, and I went back this week in taking these notes, and I was looking. I'm like, what players are impact rookies, and what team has the most impact rookies this year? And by impact rookies, I mean players that you see and hear about on the field week in and week out, making a difference in the games, right? The Lions have four huge impact players. Some teams don't even have one. The Lions have four: Jameer Gibbs, Sam Laporta, Jack Campbell, and Brian Branch. And they are all impact players that are making a difference both offensively and defensively. Jameer Gibbs looks like an unstoppable running back at this point in time.
One
Him and
hundred
Montgomery,
percent
him and Montgomery, they
lethal.
are they are one of the best backfield tandems I have seen in years, and they
Mm-hmm.
are absolutely killing it. They remind me of when the Saints Alvin Kamara's rookie year with Mark Ingram. It was a
Mm.
two-headed hydra where you have Gibbs as the speed, Kamara as the speed, and Monty and Ingram as the punch, the power.
You
And
see,
that's what
it's
Mhm.
I'd almost bring. Sorry to cut you off. I'd almost bring it back and go Reggie Bush with Deuce McAllister.
For those of
Like
you who remember that.
for those who remember going all the way back to Deuce McAllister, Reggie Bush days with that running back duo out of New Orleans.
Oh yeah. I mean, but that's the thing though. It's like the Lions are one of the best running teams in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And Gibbs is contributing to that, man. What was it? I have the stats right here. Montgomery has 577 yards, 3 touchdowns. Gibbs has 512 yards and 5 touchdowns. That's insane. Between the two of them, they have over 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns.
Right.
Between two players, they have over 1,000 rushing yards. Some teams don't even have 1,000 rushing yards between like 8 players rushing. These guys have it between two,
Right.
and they are efficient. And that's the Lions, man. They're just so fun to watch. And that's why for this Thanksgiving, it's like they are not going to roll over. They're going to be the ones eating that turkey leg this year.
I'll tell you, I was excited watching Jack Campbell come into the draft, and
Mm-hmm.
I was excited. I was hoping he would go to Pittsburgh, but we wound up not picking him up. But then when he was picked up by Detroit, and I thought about him and Aiden Hutchinson, I said it on here that duo was going to take maybe a week or two, and then they were going to be ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
The two of them are such a dynamic duo on that defense. It's ridiculous. I love them. I love him in Detroit.
Oh, absolutely. And even too, Aiden Hutchinson, this is his second year.
Hmm.
Jameson Williams, this is his second year. It does
Such a
not
young team.
it does not take long for teams to get good in the NFL because all it takes is you just making the right decisions in the off season, getting the right players, getting the right coach, getting the right scheme, getting the right identity. And it's not easy. It's not easy by any metric. But if you do it, man, it changes life. Just look at Philly with Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts. It just a couple years, like 3 years ago, they were unrecognizable. Last year,
Right, they were getting ready
super.
to trade Jalen Hurts, if you remember.
Yep.
They were getting ready to
Mm-hmm.
dump him.
Yep.
And
Nick
Sirianni
Sirianni
said,
said
wait a
no.
minute, wait a
Yep.
minute, give him one more shot, and let's see what happens.
Yep. And that's the thing is like if you make the right decisions in the off season, it does not take long for you to become a completely different team. And right now, the Lions are a completely different team on one end, and the Packers on the other end are a completely different team than what we've expected them to be. So it's it's funny because 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Lion Lions Packers Thanksgiving. Lions gonna roll over. Nope, not this year. Different
No, not
Lions.
this year. And again, honestly, I got to give credit where credit is due again to Dan Campbell because with these young players, all it takes for young players who just got into the league is the right message to follow.
Mm-hmm.
These kids are so young, and a lot of them are looking for a direction. A lot of them are still under the age of 21, so they have no idea what to do with themselves. You know, 21, 23 years old. We've all been there. We don't know what the fuck is going on. And now they're on a national stage, and someone like Dan Campbell could take a crew of 22, 23 year olds and make them play and beat the best people in the world and be the best people in the world at what they do. So
Absolutely.
all it takes is the right message for the right people, and Dan Campbell is that guy. So my hat's off to him.
Yeah, hats off to Dan Campbell, man. Like he has completely changed life in Detroit, and it's just fun football, man. It's just such fun football to see. Um, and I gotta say, I do want to say I do like Matt LaFleur as a coach on the other end too. I think
Mm-hmm.
he is a good coach. I just think that he's a different style of coach than Dan Campbell is.
It's
Dan
different
Campbell,
cultures.
yeah, it's different cultures. That's the thing. Dan Campbell is very hard nosed. Like you could place Dan Campbell in like the 70s and 80s, and he'd fit right in as a head coach.
Right.
Um, he's one of those hard nosed guys that does not take shit. Matt LaFleur, on the other hand, he's a very analytical coach. He's driven by statistics and analytics, and there's nothing wrong with that too. But it's just the different styles, and I think that you know you got to remember that these are human beings being that are playing week in and week out. They're more than just numbers that you see on their jerseys. They're people, and they have purpose and passion. And Dan Campbell, for all he does as a head coach, he squeezes every bit of purpose and passion out of his players, and you see the best product on the field week in and week out.
Yeah, well, if you look at it, when you look between Green Bay and Detroit, the culture of the teams match the culture of the city. You know, you look at Detroit, they're beaten, they're battered. You know, they're rough. It's blue collar, it's hard nosed. They've been through the roughest of shit forever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then you look at Detroit, Michigan. It's the same as a city. It is the same exact way. Faces nothing but hardship. All you hear about is, how much trouble Detroit is always in. They face the hardships and they get through it. And that is the culture of Detroit. And that is the culture Dan Campbell can mold to. Flip the script to Green Bay, Wisconsin, the cheese state. It's known for its winters. It's cold in the winter.
Well, I want to say this though: the Packers are a team defined by legacy.
Well,
That's the thing.
yes.
the Packers are one of the most historic franchises in the league, and they are defined by tradition and legacy. And I think that in the modern NFL, legacy is great to look back on, but it's not going to help you move forward. You need to reinvent yourself moving forward. And I think that right now, this year for the Packers, it's a transitional year because this is the first year without Aaron Rodgers, man, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty by any means, but it can be. You have a lot of great young players out there, both on the offense and defense, man. Like Jalen Reed, he looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
Romeo Dobbs, Christian Watson, these guys look all really good. Jordan Love doesn't he's not looking bad either. That's the thing. He does not look bad. He
No,
just
they're
needs to
just a
get his
step
completion.
behind.
He just needs to be a little bit more efficient in that
Mm-hmm.
system. And then I think he can do it. He can be a quarterback for the Green Bay Packers if they commit to him, if they choose to develop him. And I think that for them, he might be their best option. Just if you choose to develop, if you invest, right? What you and I were saying with Jalen Hurts, if you're
Right.
willing to invest in your young players, you will see the results of that investment, much like Detroit, much like Philadelphia. You'll see all these young players. So, man, I'm just really looking forward to this game, man. This is going to be such a great game.
Yes. No, I 100% agree with you, and this game is going to be very exciting. And I would hope that Green Bay would take the chance and, you know, invest in Jordan Love. You look at the highlights of last week, and he can play, and, he has a very, very molded connection with every one of his receivers. Romeo
hmm
Dobbs, Christian Watson, and what's his name? It defeats me at the moment. The other one that you just said,
Oh, Jalen Reed.
Jalen Reed. Jalen Reed is so wicked fast, and they have such a pinpoint connection. And the tight end too was getting a lot of the vast distribution of the ball
hmm
that Jordan Love has with his team. They just need a couple of years. They're just a step behind.
Yeah.
People, they're like I said last week. They're one of those teams that's a slow burn. You can't expect it to be instant with them.
hmm
It's That's how it's going to collapse if you expect the most out of something that needs time to mold.
Yeah. A flower doesn't bloom in a day. It
Right,
takes
and the ones
time.
that do, they usually fall apart the quickest.
Yeah. So it takes time. And Packers fans, just
Ride it out,
take
man.
take
It's
your time.
okay.
It's okay. It's okay that it's not your year this year. It's a lot of teams. It's not a lot of teams' year this year, but just if you could see the bright spots, even in losses, where it's like, you know what, that looked good. I like the way that player looks. I like the way that they're playing. Those
Right,
small victories. Look for development, not
right.
victories.
Take a step back and look further than the scoreboard.
hmm
Look at what's happening on the field. Look at the
hmm
connections that are being made. Look at the problems that are happening on the field. Look at who's on the same team barking at each other. Look at where there's problems happening between the offensive line and the running backs. Look at the people on the field acting as people when the chips are down and frustrations are high.
hmm
That's when teams form the most, is through turmoil.
hmm
If they start going against each other, that's where you start seeing the problems. Like we were saying a couple of years ago with Detroit, they were losing, but they were losing together. And they
hmm
were playing and fighting together. And that's what I meant. That's what we meant by that, was that they weren't attacking each other. They weren't getting after each other. They were, this is what happens. This is a process. We're going to get through it. It's going to happen. And now look at them.
hmm
And now you have to kind of look at that and take it with a grain of salt in Green Bay too. It's, are you playing and winning and losing together, or are you contradicting each other and going after each other and becoming toxic amongst each other as a team?
That's the thing. Are you a team?
Right.
So,
Exactly.
so Packers fans, start your year, but that's okay. You could still find a lot of solace in that. And who knows? maybe we'll be talking about the Packers contending in the next couple of years. But we'll see. There's a lot of time from now until then.
Right.
But for now, just enjoy Thanksgiving, man. Just enjoy
It's
it.
gonna be fun.
It's gonna be so fun. So that was our Thanksgiving game that we wanted to talk about. So with that being said, let's move on to some games on Sunday because chances are you're probably not listening to this on Thanksgiving. You're probably with your family on Thanksgiving, and we all are. We get that. But maybe you listen to us on Friday or Saturday or something like that before the games on Sunday. So we wanted to talk about those games on Sunday, starting with the Saints and the Falcons. This game is for the NFC South, for the lead in the NFC South, surprisingly. There's so much going on all around the NFL that it's like, hey, look, we have a game that actually decides who's going to lead this division. And what that means is who takes the lead in the playoff race between the Saints and the Falcons. So, Chris Paul, I'll have you start with this. Tell me what are your thoughts going into this game?
Well, I'll be honest. It completely like you said, with there's been so much shit happening around the league. It completely slipped my mind that this would be for the division. I want you to know that as a fact. It completely slipped my mind that this was for the division.
Oh no, believe me, I understand. I understand.
But I like the idea of the Falcons finally fighting for a divisional spot. I kind of have a soft spot for the Falcons. I've always wanted them to do well, but they just never. They've always had the right pieces at the wrong time, and they never molded together. They never got that team connection that we were just talking about with the Lions, like what the Lions have. They never had that. And I almost feel like there's still a couple of pieces away from it. But, if they could, seal the division from the Saints, because, this was more or less the Saints division until the Falcons said otherwise. And if they could do that, it could be very interesting. I like Desmond Ritter. I don't love him, Um, this is going to be a real test because the Saints have a very good pass rushing defense.
Yeah, man, the Saints have a top 10 defense in this league, and it's really going to challenge the Falcons here. And again, Saints Falcons, those are not teams that a lot of people think about a lot, but this game has a lot of importance. Like you brought up in the beginning of the episode, it's all like playoffs are right around the corner. This game is going to be indicative of the playoffs in the NFC South. Now both teams right now, the Falcons are 4-6, and the Saints are 5-5. So, but they also play each other again in, I believe, week 18. So that's going to also play into it as well. But obviously, if Atlanta wins, they move to 5-6, and the Saints would fall to 5-6. But the Falcons would have the tiebreaker over them. Tiebreakers are huge, especially on matchups,
especially late in the year.
Especially late in the year, if a team has beaten another team, then they will have the tiebreaker over that other team, right? But if in the playoffs, for instance, if two teams never played each other but have the same record, it comes down to conference wins among your given conference in the NFC or the AFC, respectively. So both these teams could be in the playoffs. Theoretically, they could be, but probably not. Probably just one of these teams. But I want to say both teams are just different, right? They're different styles. And the Saints are a control team, much like we see with the Broncos, much like we see like with the Packers, the Steelers, the Browns, teams with like good to great defenses that kind of keep it low scoring and kind of try to make sure that the other team does not jump to like 30 points or anything like that. It's all about control. The Falcons are a team where they're going to run the ball. They're actually one of the best rushing teams in the league. And they have been even prior to this year. They were, I Last year, I think the second best running team in the league, and that's something we don't expect from the Falcons, is a run game. Typically, under the Matt Ryan era, they were a very pass-heavy team, and it's not used to them running the ball efficiently. They have two rookies that they're doing it with, Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. Bijan with 612 yards, two rushing touchdowns, but 208 receiving yards and two touchdowns too. So he's kind of like what Alvin Kamara is, where he's a dual threat running back, where he can run it and he can also catch it for good yards too. So he's really developing into his own. But Tyler Algier, I got to give him credit, man. He is probably one of the unsung heroes on this Falcons team, keeping them alive in this playoff race with 402 rushing yards and three touchdowns. That's really good for a rookie so far at this point in the year. Both these rookies could potentially pass 1,000 yards, and that would be very impressive to see. But, we have a lot of season left. Um, it it concerns me that for me, I think the thing that's holding the Falcons back is their quarterback Desmond Ridder. Now Desmond Ridder is expected to start, and Desmond Ridder is a second-year quarterback for the Falcons. But me personally, I just don't think he's the long-term answer there. I really don't, and I think that they have good wide receivers too. They have Jonnu Smith, Kyle Pitts at tight end, and Drake London as well. All great young players. But Desmond Ridder is just not as efficient. He's 65% completion percentage, 1,700 yards, 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. But he does run the ball too. He has 150 rushing yards and 4 rushing touchdowns. So he is getting it. He can get you there, but it's a slog. It's really tough. I think that for the Falcons, it seems that they can only go down they don't get cheap touchdowns. They don't get like those 20-yard bombs or anything like that. It's all death by 1,000 cuts. 10 to 12 play drives going down the field, and that's how they're going to score, which does take up a lot of time of possession, and teams can win like that. Falcons have 4 wins already, but when you're against the teams like, say, the Lions, the Eagles, the Niners,
Right, that score in bunches.
And score at will, it's really tough to compete against those teams.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong on any count when it comes to that. Like I said, I like Desmond Ridder. I don't love him, but 2 years. It's hard to say you're not the guy after 2 years.
It is, yeah.
It's still not a lot of time. We like to say it is a lot of time. Like, yeah, again, that's the fan in us wanting something instantly. Like, we want you to be good now. Let it marinate.
Mm-hmm.
Let it marinate. Let it happen. Let the rookie contract run out, and then make the decision, because that's why the rookie contracts are there. It's you have 4 years to prove yourself here. If not, you're gone.
Typically 3, but it could be 4 if they add an extension to it.
You know what I mean? Like 4 at maximum.
Yeah.
3 on average. You have 3 years to prove yourself that you belong here.
Mm-hmm.
You have 3 strikes and you're out, essentially. Could he be the guy? Again, it's maybe. Again, it's the investment from the franchise. You're getting pieces here and there. This is the status quo for Atlanta. You've been getting pieces here and there. You're still a couple pieces away. You need a couple pieces on the offensive line. You have a good running game now. You have pieces on the offense. You're getting a couple pieces on defense. Now you just need a couple pieces on the offensive line. That's all you need. And if something else isn't going right, then you look to the sidelines and you start looking at the coaches and say, what isn't going right here? Players are right. Look at the coaches. You got to look at where things aren't working, and you got to trim fat where it's needed. Atlanta's still a few steps back, but I feel like if you just let it marinate and you let things happen, it could get very promising in Atlanta with Desmond Ridder at quarterback.
Now, let me ask you this: do you think that both of these teams, the Saints and the Falcons, have the right head coaches for that team? Like the Saints have Dennis Allen, and the Falcons have Arthur Smith. Do you think those guys are the right guys for the job for those respective teams?
Um, you see, respectfully, I don't know enough about either of them
Okay.
to give like a actual opinion on them.
Hmm.
On paper, you want to say no. Like Arthur Smith's been there for a couple of years; they haven't been playing well. You know, and this is the first I've ever heard of the Saints head coach. I'll be honest with you, so I have no idea.
Both
Um,
of these guys are actually like apprentices to their former head coaches of that team. So Dennis Allen was actually the defensive coordinator under Sean Payton when he was in New Orleans, and then he became the head coach after he left. And then Arthur Smith is actually he was the offensive coordinator for
under Dan
um
Quinn.
under Dan Quinn. Yeah.
All right. And how long ago did they become head coach? Less than 2 years ago.
So Dennis Allen was there. This is, I think, his third year or so, and
Okay.
then Arthur Smith. This is his second or third year, just about. So they're both kind of new. They're both kind of in the same predicament right now,
Right.
much like these teams. Again, these teams are 5-5, 4-6,
Right.
same
That would
predicament.
come down to the owners. That
Hmm.
would come down all to what the owners think. Do they think it's worth it just to dump everything and move on, or we gonna pick and pull and see what's needed?
Hmm.
Um, Again, I feel like that's if the report card shows more promise than failure,
Hmm.
maybe give a little bit more leniency. But if there's all failure and there's really no progress, then it would be time to move on.
I think this game is going to be very telling for both of these franchises going forward. It's going to really shine a light on their strengths and their weaknesses. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm very interested to see what team can come out with a win, but also what team can overcome the other. So I think this game this week is going to be very telling for both of these franchises in the long term future.
Yeah, I agree. This is going to be a real eye opener for the ceilings for both teams.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And again, it's easy to forget about the NFC South, but man, this is again for the division. One of these teams is probably going to the playoffs. So I'm keeping my eye on this game this weekend. Um, any final thoughts on this game, CP?
No, this game should just be exciting. Again, it's just two blue collar teams going at it, and this should be like a 10 round fight. You expect not I wouldn't say fireworks, but there's going to be some power punches thrown in this one.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about another game on Sunday, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Indianapolis Colts. This was a game that actually you wanted to discuss, CP. So tell me, what are your thoughts going into this game right here?
Well, again, it keeps running in my mind is playoffs.
Hmm.
Like both of these teams aren't necessarily out, but they aren't necessarily in. It's just on both sides of the spectrum. Every game is a must-win game, and everything has a little bit of a playoff edge to it. It's just that every team could play spoiler for another, so every game has a little bit more excitement. And Baker Mayfield in Tampa looks pretty fucking good, man. And he's always been that player where if you back him into a corner, or if he sees something right around, and this hasn't really been shown much in the pros. This was more in college, where if it's like they're right on the cusp of postseason, he'll kick it into a different gear, and he turns into the professional that people know him and think he can actually be. So I want to see that come out of him in Tampa. And same for Indy. Of course, the loss to Anthony Richardson this year is rough. But, they can play spoiler. They can still be that team that comes around and just beats a good team and kicks them out of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. It's funny too because we talked about in the last segment, a 4-6 team against a 5-5 team. This is the same. A 4-6 team against a 5-5 team. Bucs are 4-6. Colts are 5-5. Both playoff hopes are still alive. For both teams. I do want to say, I know we've talked about the Colts a couple times throughout the season. Gardner Minshew has stepped up to the plate in the absence of Anthony Richardson. And I got to say, I do like what I see from the Colts out of Shane Steichen, their new head coach. He was the offensive coordinator for Philadelphia this last couple years, and he just got the new head coaching job in Indianapolis. And I got to say, I like what I've seen from him because they put up points, and they are fun to watch. They move down the field with ease, but they don't always cash out, which is fine. I understand that. It's still a young team. You still have a lot of great young players. Michael Pittman, their new wide receiver, Josh Downs. He's an impact rookie right off the bat, man. He is an impact player. Zach Moss is really stepping up, and obviously Jonathan Taylor's doing his thing too. I also do want to give a shout out to their middle linebacker, Zaire Franklin. He has 117 total tackles, solo and assisted. So he is he is all over the field. My God, he is all over the field. So I really like just the Colts are just a fun team to watch, and it's one of those where it's like, man, I kind of really wanted to see a little bit more of Anthony Richardson and see what this team could be, but they are still alive in the playoffs, and especially getting a win over the Jags earlier this year, really helps them staying alive in the NFC South. Obviously, the Texans are competing as well. That Texans are a very fun team to watch too. So Colts are. I don't think any team wants to play the Colts in the AFC because the Colts are just one of those teams that they can just put up points and they'll just match you on the field, right? For the Bucs, it's a little different. I see a big glaring issue with the Bucs and their success. And it was the same problem that they had last year. They don't run the ball. They don't run it enough. They don't run it enough at all.
They run it all.
Their rookie, Rashad White, he is their leading rusher with 459 rushing yards out of their 769 total rushing yards. So 310 other yards is combined between
came from other people,
but it's like 5 other people between that. So he's the only one running the ball consistently in there, but they don't give him enough looks. And so their entire offense is predicated on Baker throwing to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And that's it.
It's very one-dimensional.
It's very one-dimensional. But that's the thing, though, is like we said this last year when Brady was still there too. They don't run it enough. And now it's like you're 4-6. You still have a chance to make the playoffs because the NFC South, no one's running away with it right now. But you're not adapting. You're not changing to what the game calls for. You keep forcing the ball to Mike Evans and keep forcing it to Chris Godwin. And yes, those are great players. Mike Evans is a Hall of Fame player. But man,
switch it up.
Teams are like, if you and I as fans can just see this as an issue, NFL coaches are going to eat this right up.
Listen, I'll be the first one to tell you about predictability when it comes to plays. All right? The fucking Pittsburgh Steelers had one of the single most predictable playbooks for 3 years straight. The Bucs are fucking predictable. You can tell what they're going to do. Like you said, they're completely one-dimensional. They got to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, and it's a shame too because their defense is actually really fucking good. They actually have like it's scoring defense. Scoring defense means points allowed throughout the season
Mm-hmm.
for those who don't know. They actually have the ninth best scoring defense. So like they have allowed the ninth fewest points in the league, which is so great. Any team would be so lucky to have that. And it's a shame because this defense that they have, and this is pretty much the same defense that they won the Super Bowl with. Vita Vea, Levante David, Devin White, it's all the same players, and they're doing great, but their offense is just predictable.
Right.
You still there, CP? I must have
Yeah, I'm
lost
here.
your image. I don't see you on my screen.
Yep,
So
I'm here. I'm still
okay,
coming in. Sorry.
okay. Oh no, you're good. You're good. Um, but man, I think this is a very interesting matchup because I think it's going to be a very close game between these two teams. Colts don't have a great defense, so I still think the Bucs can exploit that defense, and uh, and the Colts are going to be challenged on their offense too because against that Tampa Bay defense. So it's going to be both teams match up against each other very well.
Yeah, I like this. I like this game a lot. This game has very exciting written all over it.
Oh yeah, and it's really going to determine like whoever wins this game stays alive in the playoffs. Whoever loses takes a big step back.
Yeah, no, the loss of this game, it becomes like a critical shot for both teams.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been saying it to nauseum all episode that just about every game is a must win for just about everybody on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
The opposite side of that is if you lose, it's like a cutthroat thing. You know, you could drop 2 places and not even think, and without even losing a step because the other two teams just won.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go from 3rd place to 6th place without even thinking
Oh yeah,
at this point in time. You know, you could see yourself right out of the playoff race with 1 loss.
exactly, exactly. Ah, your image came back. I got to see your beautiful face. Oh man, I'm excited for this game. Any final thoughts on this game?
No, just keep an eye out. This game could have some fireworks.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's move on to the last game that we wanted to talk about, and that is the Sunday night primetime game. My Ravens against the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yep, you can take this one. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. I'll start with the Chargers. This is a must-win game. This is a must-win game for the Chargers right now because right now in the AFC playoff picture, Ravens are the number 1 seed at the current moment. We haven't had our bye week yet. A lot of teams have had their bye week, such as the Dolphins, the Chiefs, the Jags. All these other divisional leaders have had it. So like I don't expect the Ravens to stay at number 1. Would I like them to be? Yes, absolutely. But do I expect them to? No, not at all. But the Chargers, they are number 13 in the AFC at 4-6. This is a complete must-win for them because if they lose this game against the Ravens, they have to pretty much win out in order to be in the playoffs. It's they are behind the Broncos, who are 5-5. They are behind the Raiders, who are, I think, 5-5, if I'm not mistaken. They are no, sorry, they're 5-6, if I'm not. Yeah, 5-6. So the Chargers are you. This is a really crucial game because they're also behind the Bills, the Colts, the Broncos, the Bengals, and the Raiders. It's the AFC, like you and I have been saying. The AFC is just too thick. There's too many great teams in the AFC, and it could easily happen that the Chargers just slip right past and don't even make the playoffs. Um,
Again.
again. And it's a shame too because they're so talented. They're so talented. But they they do have a big glaring issue. And you and I, we've been saying it for a long. We've been like, what's wrong with the Chargers? Well, why can't they close out games? Why? And I looked at the stats. I really looked at it, and their defense has given up the fifth most passing yards in the league. And so teams are just marching down the field through the air, just bing, 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 dropping dimes. And yes, the Ravens, we come into this game, we are the number one rushing team. We lead the league in sacks. We have the number 3 defense in the league. Lamar is having a fantastic year. He has 2,400 yards, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 69% completion percentage, and he's rushed for, what was it, 535 yards and 5 touchdowns. He is having a phenomenal year by his standards. And Justin Herbert, he's also having a really good year as well. He has 2,600 yards, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and 66% completion percentage. So he's having a great year. The Chargers' offense is not the problem. It's their defense. And the Ravens are coming in. We're coming in hot. We're coming in unsatisfied. Because if it's funny, because on that Thursday night game against the Bengals, Odell Beckham and Lamar, they sat at the podium with the announcers. They looked angry. They did not look happy. It looked like they just lost the game. And they just looked so dissatisfied because they know the regular season, it's not over. We need to keep stacking wins. And so the Chargers are really, their back is against the wall because this is going to be one of the toughest challenges this season. And their schedule does not get easier from here on out. They still have to play the Broncos, that's not going to be a pushover. They have to play the Chiefs again. I believe that's week 18. They have a really tough schedule ahead of them. As much as I don't want the Chargers to win, I do want to see them in the playoffs. But man, it's going to be tough this week because the Ravens, we just look too good, man.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with you. The Ravens, at this point in time, they look very, very hard to beat. And we've been saying it for 2 years now that the Chargers have issues closing out games, especially when they get ahead. They have a hard time holding a lead, and yeah, that's because the defense has a hard time at holding people to marching up and down the field. It's something that happens almost at will when it comes to the Chargers defense. We talk all the time about their defensive front. I'm not going to go their front 7. I'm going to talk strictly their pass rush.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Bosa. Joey Bosa's brother.
Mm-hmm.
Then now you have Khalil Mack, another sack monster.
Oh wait, isn't Joey Bosa out on injury?
Oh, you're right. He is out on injury.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
All right, but you still have Khalil Mack, who is a sack machine.
Mm-hmm.
But, more so like the problem that the Falcons have had for years, it's the right piece at the wrong time. You have no one else. You need more defensemen. You need a lockdown cornerback. You need a ball hawking safety. You need a zone coverage linebacker. And you need a nose tackle. That Chargers defense needs a lot of players. The offense, again, it's equipped to win games. That Chargers defense is not equipped to secure wins.
Yeah, and I like that you brought up the Falcons too, because when the Falcons were under the Matt Ryan era, their offense and their defense looked like they were just playing 2 completely different games. And they look like 2 completely different teams. And it's like if one does excellent, right? One side of the ball is excellent, but the other side lacks. And that's what you see. prime example in that Falcons Super Bowl, 28-3. You gave up the biggest lead in the Super Bowl history
Ever.
ever.
Right.
And when that happened too, the offense stalled. The offense got the ball back when Brady kept scoring, and they did nothing. And the Chargers seem to be like when they get complacent on defense, teams just take advantage. And I it pains me because they actually do have a lot of really good players on that defense. Drew Tranquil is a great middle linebacker. Derwin James, he's one of the best safeties in the league. J.C. Jackson is a great corner, but they don't execute when they need to. When they need to. And that's the thing, is like they beat up the bad teams. Like, it was very fun watching them beat up the Bears, right? It was very fun. But man, you came to the Packers and you look like a completely different team.
Right. You got beat up by the Packers.
Yeah.
They beat you up for 4 quarters. And now you're going into playing a contending Ravens team.
Who, by the way, again, we lead the league in sacks.
Right.
That's going to be we're going to bully Justin Herbert. We have
you play roughshod on the offensive line all game.
We have one of the best linebacking tandems in the league between Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen.
Mm-hmm.
Geno Stone, our safety, leads. He has 6 interceptions so far, and he has the interception leader so far this year. So the Chargers, this is a challenge for them. Their back is against the wall because this is not going to be an easy game. But man, it's such an important game for them.
Yeah, and it's actually very important for you too. I
Absolutely.
know you're at number 1, but again, like we said, this AFC bracket is separated by half a game.
It's tight.
And it's by half a game, and it's just like last year, where one loss can knock you far down, like, unbelievably.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't count out the Chargers you're going to go 10 rounds. That's just what's going to happen. They're not going to roll over. If you guys come out and you put up 27 in the first half, you can pretty much say that the game's going to be over. The Chargers
I don't know about that.
I don't know that the Chargers can come back from a 27-point deficit.
I think they can, but that's the thing, is we've seen it before for the Ravens. We have just given up in the fourth quarter. Like, our fourth quarter game is we don't tighten up. We don't play our best in the fourth quarter. And that's a flaw for the Ravens, and I will gladly admit that. Well, not gladly, but I will admit that.
Also a flaw for the Chargers. They don't play their best football in the fourth quarter.
I know. That's the thing.
They play their best quarter. They play their best football between the second and third quarter. It's not even a full quarter worth of football.
Yeah.
You watch it, it's like the last 4 minutes of the second quarter to the half, and then like the first 3 minutes of the third quarter. They're fucking unbeatable.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of the game, it's like shambles for the Chargers, and it's fucking confusing. It's like they play to get ready to go into the half, and then they get hyped coming out of the half, and then they remember that, oh shit, we're not the better team on the field.
I just want to go through their schedule with you next, because I just want to kind of look it up.
They have a gauntlet, from my understanding.
It's not easy, and you may look at these teams at face value, but like, these teams are physical teams that are going to make it hard for them. So they play us, then they go to New England to play the Patriots. Then the Broncos come into town, then they go to Vegas, and then the Bills come into town. They go to Denver, and then they close off with the Chiefs coming to LA.
I see one win out of that.
Yeah, maybe 2 if you split the Raiders series, but
no, I don't think the Raiders lose either of those games, and that's the truth.
Maybe it's tough but it's so tough because, again, this game is so important for the Chargers if they have any hopes to make the playoffs. 4-7 in the AFC.
One more loss, you're done. That's it. It's the same thing with the Patriots. They're 2-8. They're out. They're 2-9 now, actually.
No, I think they're 2-8. So they're
Two and
still
eight.
technically
I would think they're
alive.
statistically out now.
No, they're still technically alive. No team has been eliminated yet.
Well,
Yet.
Patriots are going to be first. I can promise you that one.
Yeah, the Patriots are going to be the first ones to have
They're going to be
it.
the first, and who knows if the Chargers don't play their cards right, they could be the next.
Very well. So that is the Chargers and the Ravens matchup. My God, what a matchup on Sunday night primetime, man.
What a week we got. This is such an exciting week.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, Chris Palmer, are you ready to pick some games?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's pick some fucking games, Papa. So let's start on Thanksgiving. First game on Thanksgiving, the Packers and the Lions. Who you got? It's
Give me
tough.
the mighty. I know this is tough. This is a tough one. Give me Detroit. I'm going to go Detroit.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Detroit as well. I think they're gonna eat that turkey leg. Okay, so let's move on to the second team that loves to play on Thanksgiving, and that is the Dallas Cowboys against the Washington Commanders. Uh, I,
Oof.
I'm gonna go with Dallas on this one, but Chris Palmer, who you got for this?
Mm, you see, I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. I'm going to go the Commanders. Um, yeah, I'm going to play devil's advocate here and go with the Commanders. That the Cowboys and the Packers are both going to be upset on Thanksgiving Day.
Oh, you think the Packers are gonna upset as well?
No. I think they're
Oh,
going to get upset.
oh,
Like,
okay, okay,
because historically speaking, the Packers usually win, and the
yeah, yeah,
Cowboys are kind of the front runners on Thanksgiving Day as well.
okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the Commanders are gonna win this one.
I like it. I like it. Okay. So let's move on to the primetime 8 o'clock game. The 49ers coming to Seattle to play the Seahawks. Geno Smith is healthy for this game, so he will be playing.
Give me San Fran. San Fran's gonna roll on through.
Yep, I too am going to take San Francisco. So let's move on to Black Friday, the first ever Black Friday game in the NFL, and that is the Miami Dolphins and the New York Jets. I want to give a shout out to our boy T. He's going to be at this game, and he's going to have a wonderful time.
Yeah, T. I
Um,
hope you enjoy yourself, dude.
enjoy yourself, my brother. But Chris Palmer, who you got for this game?
I'm gonna go Dolphins. Jets are in shambles. Just bench Zach Wilson, and Dolphins are looking for a Super Bowl run at the moment. So going Dolphins.
Absolutely. I'm going to go Dolphins as well. So let's move on to Sunday's slate of games, starting with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Indianapolis Colts. Chris Palmer, who you got for this one?
Give me the Colts. I'm gonna take the Colts. I'm gonna hope that Minshew can come over the Bucs, but the Bucs aren't to be trifled with.
I like it. I like it. I'm actually going to go with the Bucs. I like their defense a little bit more. And I think that when push comes to shove, I ultimately like defense over offense. Um, Man, Levante David, he's having a phenomenal year, man. He's absolutely killing it for the Bucks this year. Vita Vea, Devin White, Antoine, uh, not Randall L.
No, that
Antoine,
was a wide receiver for the Steelers.
no. Antoine Winfield. Sorry,
Mm.
yes. He's having a great season as well. So I'm gonna go with the Bucks on this one. Despite their predictability. Um, let's move on to the New England Patriots and the New York Giants. Chris Palmer, who you got for this? This is the Elimination Bowl, I feel.
Right. I feel like whoever loses is going to be the first team statistically out. But like I just said a few seconds ago, I'm going to say the Patriots are the first one to be eliminated, and I'm going to give me the Giants.
Really? Okay. This used to be a great rivalry between these two guys.
Ugh.
I'm gonna go with the Patriots on this one. Actually, I just think that they are just the better team than the Giants, man.
All right.
So I'm
They're
gonna
both pretty
go.
fucking bad.
I know both teams are really fucking bad. Tommy DeVito, baby, Tommy DeVito.
Tommy DeVito.
And Belichick eats rookie quarterbacks for breakfast. So let's move on to your Steelers against the Cincinnati Bengals. Who you got for this one?
My heart wants to say Pittsburgh. but I'm actually gonna go Cincinnati. It's gonna be a first game. We have an interim offensive coordinator, an interim play caller. It's gonna be a rough patch for a while. I'm gonna go Cincinnati on this one.
I respect it. It's not easy going against your team. I'm gonna take your Steelers. Um,
It'd be great to see a fucking 30-point game with 400 yards total offense.
I don't
Week
see
one
that.
after Matt Canada.
I don't see that, but I think also without the absence of Joe Burrow is also going to hurt Cincinnati
yes.
a lot. So, because when they played the Ravens that Thursday night, it was the whole tone of the game shifted in just the Ravens' favor, where it's like, okay, we can breathe, knowing that this is not the Bengals team that we expected to play this year. So
Well, yeah, all the air just got sucked out of Cincinnati, Ohio.
So, with that being said, I'm going to take your Steelers to beat the Bengals this week.
All right.
So let's move on to Carolina and Tennessee. Tennessee's been struggling as of late, but do they bounce back against the worst team in the league, the Panthers?
You fucking better hope so. I'm gonna go with the Titans because I have no reason to go for the Panthers.
Mm-hmm.
But problems on both ends.
I know, man. I'm gonna go with the Titans as well, man. But man, you guys are really straying away from what you guys are. Will Levis, I
Not
don't
the
know what's
guy.
going on with you, man. I don't know. But let's hope this is a bounce back game for the Titans. Let's move on to the battle for the South. The AFC South, the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Houston Texans. Man, this is a
Game of the week.
Woo, man! And I almost wanted to talk this game right here, but we have a special episode next week, so
Yeah,
I want to save that. But man, Jags Texans, man. Chris Palmer, who you got?
This one's so hard.
This is really fucking hard.
The next two are incredibly hard to fucking go by.
I know.
Shit. I guess give me. Fuck. This one's hard. Give me the Texans. But this game is going to be unbelievable. This could be game of the week. This could be a possible game of the year candidate.
It very well could, man. It very well could. I'm gonna go Jags on this one. I part of me wants to go Texans just because they've been really hot as of late, but last week kind of proved that if they don't kind of close out the deal, a team can hang around with the Texans. They don't have a really strong defense like that. And I think the Jags, it was a great thrashing on the Titans to kind of get them back up to speed.
Mm-hmm.
Texans beat them earlier this year. It's hard to sweep a team. I'm going to take the Jags.
All right.
Okay. Battle for the NFC South. Saints versus Falcons. I'm going to go with the Saints on this one just because I'm a little bit more familiar with how they operate as a team. Chris Palmer, who you got for this one? It's tough. These two South battles, man, it's so tough.
There's always something fishy going on with the South. It's fucking crazy.
I know, man. It's that gumbo down there, man. Gumbo.
I'm gonna go New Orleans as well, but I'm almost like smelling upset from the Falcons here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keep an eye out for this one. Possible upset from the Falcons.
I like it. Okay. Let's move on to the Rams and the Cardinals. Chris Palmer, who you got for this one?
Rams should win this one, no problem.
I like it. I am taking the upset on this one. I'm taking the Cardinals on this one. Kyler Murray and the Cardinals look like a completely different team, and the Rams struggled to put up points against the Seahawks last week. So I'm going to take the Cardinals to upset the Rams here.
Okay.
Let's move on to the AFC with the Browns and the Broncos. Woo, this is going to be a really good game. I like so many great games. God damn.
This is a great weekend.
Who you got, Chris Palmer? Do the Broncos go to a 5-game winning streak?
Well, that's the thing, right? Because now Cleveland's walking into Denver after last week.
And Denver's hot.
And
Denver's
Denver's
hot.
on fire right now. Could you
Yeah.
imagine what Broncos Stadium's going to be like?
Broncos country.
Give me the Broncos, man. Give me the Broncos.
I like it. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Broncos as well, man.
You got
Momentum.
my attention.
They have momentum, and again, that defense I think is going to really stifle. Not PJ Walker. Dorian Thompson Robinson. I think they're really going to stifle him.
It's weird to me they aren't giving PJ Walker another shot.
I know that's up to Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah.
But oh man. Okay, let's move on to Philadelphia, where the Eagles take on the Bills. Woo!
Oof. Another one.
Who you got for this one, Chris Palmer?
Another alpha game, man. But the Bills walking into Philly, I'm going to give it to Philly, man. Philly is on a ride right now. I don't think the Bills can beat them.
I'm taking Philly too, but I smell something here. I think I might smell a possible upset.
Nah, this
If-
is stale beer from the Bills tailgate.
Possibly. If the Bills cut back on turnovers. If they don't, Philly takes it handedly. But if the Bills do not turn the ball over and they play a clean game, they're going to really give Philly a run for their money. Because Philly is not... They're not dominating teams. But because teams still have a chance to win those games. The Chiefs still had a chance to beat them last week. The Commanders had multiple opportunities to beat them twice. Dallas had a chance to beat them. Even the Patriots in week 1. So this is going to be a close game. Circle this matchup, man. This is going to be a very interesting one. Let's move on to Las Vegas, where the Chiefs take on the Raiders. Chris Palmer, who you got?
I mean, the Chiefs. I want to keep an eye out for the Chiefs, though. I got to see if they score in the second half. If they go 4 games straight without scoring in the second half, that can be very concerning coming towards the end of the year.
Absolutely. I'm going to take the Chiefs as well. Chiefs just kind of beat up on the Raiders, and the Raiders are still kind of struggling this year, but still alive in the playoff race. If the Raiders win this, good for them, man. They move on to 6-6, and that is huge. That is huge. So let's move on to the Sunday night primetime game. My Ravens taking on the Chargers. Who you got?
You guys should have no problem beating these guys. Seriously. I'm going to go with the Ravens by a big margin.
Really? I'm actually going with the Ravens, but a small margin. I don't think
see it being small.
I don't see a blowout. I would like a blowout because that would really put our stamp on the AFC. But I don't know, man. Justin Herbert and that offense, he can put up points. So I don't feel too comfortable going into this game. But man, my eyes are going to be glued to that TV watching this. Okay, so let's move on to the final game of Week 12, and that is the Chicago Bears taking on the Minnesota Vikings.
Who you got?
Give me the Vikings, man. Bears are just shambles of what they should be. But Justin Fields back. So I think this is going to be a very, very exciting game with Fields on the field. But I'm going to take the Vikings because I like Josh Dobbs. Potential return of Justin Jefferson. I wouldn't expect it, but
I don't think so.
But it's possible.
I don't think Justin Jefferson's going to come back, but I do think the Vikings are going to win. This is with Justin Fields coming back. This is that time that we've been talking about when it comes to these other teams where now you got to start playing, winning, and losing as a team in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do it, and you got to do it together, and you got to not point fingers. And you can get somewhere in time. In time, you got to let it marinate.
Absolutely. Okay, so that is our Week 12 picks for this upcoming week. So many great games this upcoming week. Now, do we do want to say we do have a special episode next week? We should have a very special guest, and we are really excited for that. But until then, we want to wish you and your family a very happy and healthy and safe Thanksgiving. We hope you enjoy it. Um, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for all that YouTube funness.
Yes. Thank you again to everyone who has sat with us the past couple of years to do this. We hope you have a very safe and happy Thanksgiving. Spend some time with your family, eat some food, and hopefully you'll be able to check in this episode and hear a couple of things that you want there for the weekend.
Absolutely. So until then, we'll catch you all next week on Let's Talk Football.
Thanks, guys.